Does this signal the end of NATO as we know it? Now, you know the United States and NATO has a pact that's been around for a long time where all the nations are supposed to work together for global peace, like pressuring Russia not to attack Ukraine. The problem is that, policies are all good and well until stuff really gets drastic. And that's exactly where we found ourselves. And we're seeing situations happening really, really fast today that look like we might be seeing the end of NATO. Now, there's a couple attacks. One, there's money. So there's a money attacks, and I'm going to talk about that in a different video, how the EU could probably break apart because of the debt situation. But today we're going to focus on reality. And what is reality? Money is only a medium of exchange. Nobody wants money. What people want is the things that money will buy them. Mainly, what do we need? Well, we need food and energy. That's what we need. Without food and energy, we can't live. Unless you live like in the tropics, then you have to have energy to live. You have to have heat. If you don't have heat, you're going to die in most of the world. If you don't have air conditioning, you'll die in most of the world, unless you live in the tropics. So we need energy. We need to drive. We need our food delivered to us. So without energy, we die. And then we need food, obviously. And so that's what I'm talking about in reality. And so this Russia-Ukraine situation has really brought this situation to a head. Now, it's brought it to a head only because for the last decade or so, our leaders have been pushing policies that have put us into a dangerous situation that is now being exploited because of the Russia-Ukraine war. And what do I mean by that? Well, our leaders have been attacking energy and food for over a decade. They've been passing rules and regulations and banning investment capital. So we're not developing new sources of energy. We're not investing into new energy. We're not investing in new food and things like that. And so now we have an underinvestment, undersupply. And now it's all come to a head, and it is happening right before our very eyes. I can't even believe what I'm going to show you. It's that shocking. Let's dig right in. All right, so here we go. On Reuters right here, why India ramped up Russian oil imports. Now, I thought the whole world was supposed to be sanctioning Russia. Like, aren't we supposed to be blocking Russia? We're not supposed to be buying anything from them, right? Well, and it's past. I'm going to jump into some bigger stuff that's going to be shocking, so just wait. But first, since the start of the war in Ukraine, the U.S. states and its allies have leaned on countries to what? Of course, sanction, which means buy less Russian oil. The problem is that we need oil, right? That's the problem. Indian refineries have done the opposite. Instead of sanctioning, instead of stopped buying Russian oil, they've done the opposite. As a matter of fact, India has been buying more than ever before. How much have they been buying? Glad you asked. It says they've been buying huge leaps in volumes from Russia. In May, India imported almost 1 million barrels, 800,000 barrels per day, up from 277 in April. That's a big increase from 277 to 819. Now, that's up from only 33,000 a year ago. So the same time last year they bought 33,000. Now they've bought 800,000. So they haven't started throttling Russia. As a matter of fact, they're buying more from Russia than they ever have before. It says here, Russia is now the second biggest supplier to India, replacing Saudi Arabia, while Iraq continues to be the largest. So now they've gone from 33,000 to 800,000. Russia's the second largest supplier to India. And, all of this supply-demand imbalance has caused the price of oil to go up, which means now Russia is making more money than they've ever made before. One, because the price of oil went so high, and two, now everybody wants to buy their oil. It says here, as Indian government officials said, India plans to continue with purchases of Russian oil. Well, why would they do that? Well, turns out they need oil. Turns out no one in the world can actually survive without oil. Recently, there was some protesters that were going into these different museums in Europe, and they were super gluing themselves to these paintings in protest of oil. And they would spray paint on the wall, like "Stop Oil." They did it with two very famous paintings. I forget off the top of my head. The interesting thing is that you need oil in order to make the super glue, to glue yourself, and you need petroleum in order to make the spray paint. So they couldn't even protest without the oil. And so it turns out we need oil to live. And it says here that if India stops buying oil from Russia, then the entire world will be chasing the same pieces of oil, and that will further push up the prices. So the oil is a global market. So if India stops buying it from Russia, then the rest of the world is just going to buy it from Russia. right? It says here, India has done more than any country to compensate for the drop in demand for Russian oil from elsewhere, undermining Western efforts to isolate Moscow. So no matter how much NATO and no matter how much the U.S. wants to pressure the world to stop buying Russian energy, turns out it needs it. Now, it says this is important to understand. If you don't know history, you're bound to repeat it. And this is where these policymakers obviously have never cracked the history book, and it shows. So New Delhi wants to avoid repeating what it sees as the mistakes of the past. Well, what were the mistakes of the past? We should probably learn from those mistakes, right? Abiding by sanctions on Iran and winding down oil imports, only to see its main regional rival, China, continue unpunished and benefit economically. So while we were busy tying our hands behind our back and tying ourselves to a chair so we can't compete, meanwhile, China just went ahead and gobbled up the whole world. That's exactly what happened with the sanctions on Iran, and India's main rival, China, got ahead because India decided to tie its hand behind its back and not compete, and China just ate their lunch. You know, we have the United States has entered into this Paris Accord. In the United States, we're not allowing farmers to grow food in a time when we need more food because we've committed to climate guidelines under the Paris Accord. Now, the Paris Accord, you commit what you want to do. So no one's asking you to do it. You say what you volunteer, you commit what you're going to do. Each nation does. The U.S. has already reduced its emissions by 30%, while China and Russia has gone up. We've already reduced by 30, and we've committed to reduce by another 30. What is China and India committed to? They've committed to increasing. As a matter of fact, China says that they're going to continue increasing until 2030, and then maybe they'll cut. So we're hamstringing ourselves, we're restricting our businesses, we're pushing higher costs to you while the rest of the world's getting ahead. That's the mistakes that New Delhi doesn't want to repeat. We can see here that it says India has the attitude that if China is buying, why wouldn't we? Because turns out we need this stuff. India doesn't want to be in the same position again when China continued to buy Iranian oil. And here's a good piece. India blames OPEC for holding barrels back from the market. So if the world, OPEC or NATO or the U.S. really wanted nations to stop buying Russian oil, they would understand that, well, they still need the oil. So probably what we should do is, create more supply, and then we could replace that Russian supply. Hey, stop buying from them, we'll sell to you instead. But that's not what they're offering. They're saying, stop buying their oil. We don't have enough for you, but stop buying theirs, and then you just don't have any. It's not a good option. It's not going to work. Now, last month, Indian Foreign Minister, I can't say his name, posed the question at a conference, why are Indian money and funds coming from India seen as funding the war in Ukraine when Europe also buys gas from Russia? So why is it that everyone's mad at India for buying Russian gas and supposedly India is funding the war when Europe also buys gas from Russia? That's a good question. And let's dig into that part. So what we can see here is that Germany was resisting pressure from NATO to throttle Russian energy imports, the decision to continue buying Russian energy. So Germany's like, well, we need it too. So I get it. It's against NATO. And Germany, we're part of NATO. But we're going to defy the agreement because we need it. Now, I don't have it ready, but there was a video I put on Twitter the other day. If you're not following me on Twitter, you should, @1MarkMoss. But I put a video of President Trump in 2018 in Germany talking to NATO and said, hey, the U.S., we put all the money into NATO. We're here to protect you. Protect you from who? From Russia. And here Germany is doing a deal on gas to get billions of dollars to Russia, the very people we're paying to protect you against. And it's going to put you in this bad situation where you're going to be dependent on Russia. That was 2018. Here we are 4 years later, and we find ourselves in the situation where Germany needs it. But they've been under pressure, and here's where the story takes a twist. So Germany says that they are going to quit Russian oil and gas by this late summer. Really? Because I think you need oil and I think you need gas, and I don't know where else you're going to get it. So what's going to happen? Well, let's take a look at this. Today, Germany dims the lights to cope with Russian gas supply crunch. I mean, I don't even know where to start with this. Fears of winter energy crisis bring calls for shorter hot showers. So let me get this straight. We've known how to make electricity for over 100 years. We have natural gas that just comes out of the ground naturally. We've known how to do this for hundreds of years. We've had hot showers for hundreds of years. We've been able to have heat in our homes. As I said, if you don't live in the tropics, you'll die without heat. Humans need, our body temperature has to stay warm. If we don't have clothes and jackets that we need, of course, petroleum to make, and we don't have heat for our homes, we'll die. And we've known how to do that for a long time, but now we just can't anymore. And so now they have to dim the lights. Fears of winter energy crisis bring calls for shorter hot showers. I can't even with this. Germany is rationing hot water, dimming the street lights, and shutting down swimming pools as the impact of its energy crunch begins to spread from industry to offices, leisure centers, and homes. So now, no more hot water, no more street lights, no more swimming pools. Why? Why can't we have all these things that we've always had? Oh, because we don't want to get the energy out of the ground. That's right. Why is Germany totally dependent on Russia? Because they don't want to get their own natural gas out of the ground. There's plenty of natural gas to be had in Europe, but they don't want to get it out of the ground. They'd rather depend on Russia, and now they'd rather have none. So no hot water for you, no street lights for you, no swimming pools for you, because, we don't want to get out of the ground. Now, a huge increase in gas prices triggered by Russia's move last month to sharply reduce supplies to Germany. Remember that story, 2018, Trump warned Germany this would happen, has plunged Europe's biggest economy into its worst energy crisis. They have caused this on themselves. They decided not to get it out. It says here, gas importers and utilities are fighting for survival. It's pretty hyperbole. Fighting for survival. Consumer bills are going through the roof. Consumers can't even afford natural gas. They can't even afford to heat their homes. Of course, we need natural gas to make fertilizer, and we need fertilizer to make foods. We don't have that. We also need natural gas to process food. Turns out we kind of need it. And here, the situation is actually more than dramatic. Germany's social peace is in great danger. What do you think happens when people can't keep the lights on? What do you think happens when people can't eat or feed their families? Do you think that's peaceful when there's no lights? Have you ever seen what happens to cities like when there's like a power outage or some sort of a hurricane goes through there? It turns into mayhem. What do you think is going to happen? It's more than dramatic. The social peace is in great danger. The economy minister, Robert Habeck, said, quote, "We have to be prepared for the situation to become critical." Not bad, not dire, but critical. It's not good. On Thursday, Vonovia, the country's largest residential landlord, said it would be lowering the temperature of its tenants' gas central to 17 degrees between 11 and 6 a.m. I think that's like 62 degrees Fahrenheit. Or correct me if I'm wrong. You can leave me a comment. But the whole of society has to now cut down its energy consumption. Everybody must sacrifice for this. The district of Lawndale near Frankfurt is switching off the hot water in 86 schools and 60 gyms from mid-September. So all the kids in school, sorry, no more hot water for you. Don't we need hot water to wash our hands to protect us against COVID? I thought we had to wash, wasn't it like 90 seconds we have to wash our hands under hot water? I guess that's out the window. Dusseldorf has temporarily closed a massive swimming pool complex because, you don't get that anymore. And I love this part. Residential customers are now taking action. Of course, take care of yourself because government ain't going to help you. Sales of firewood, wood pellets, and coal, as well as gas canisters and cartridges have shot up. So now, because we're trying to protect the environment, we don't want to use clean natural gas. So now let's just light up the firewood and the wood pellets and the coal. That sounds like a pretty good option, doesn't it? I mean, these guys are geniuses. I don't even know what to say anymore. So we know how to make electricity, but we don't want to get it out of the ground because it's bad. So let's burn firewood instead, and let's just not have kids have any hot water. You don't get any hot water. Now I'm going to also remind you that this is during the summertime. What do you think happens during the wintertime? Do you think NATO can stay together? Do you think Germany is going to say, screw it, I need the energy, I'm going to buy it, we're done with NATO, every man for themselves? When people are starving, when social unrest happens, it's every man for themselves. That's why I think it could be the end of NATO as we know it. This could be one of the catalysts that sees it come to an end. But what do you think? Leave me a comment. Let me know. Am I crazy or are they crazy? Or maybe we're all crazy. I don't even know. Give me a thumbs up on this video if you like it. If you don't, thumbs down. That's okay. Leave me a comment. Tell me why. Hit that subscribe button. I'm trying to grow this channel. And check out my main channel, Mark Moss, where I really break these things down in greater detail. And that's what I got for you today. To your success. I'm out. Since you've stayed to the end, I know you like this video, which means you're probably gonna really like this video right here and this video right here.